Imagine a long, flat highway cutting across the endless wheat-gold prairies of Saskatchewan in the winter of 1959, headlights carving tunnels through snow that falls sideways, and a 10-year-old boy in the back seat of a rickety Chevy, half asleep against the window. His name is David Ross Lonsberry, but everyone, even then, already calls him Ross. And he is clutching a battered canvas hockey bag that smells like leather, liniment, and sharp metallic hope. His father, Morley, drives in silence, steering through drifts toward yet another freezing rink in yet another farm town where bleachers will rattle and mothers will stomp their boots, and tiny figures in hand. Me-down sweaters will chase a scuffed black puck beneath buzzing floodlights. Ross is not the biggest kid. He will never top 5'10", but he is quick, instinctive, and gritty, and on nights like this, he is certain the cold itself is whispering a promise. Keep skating, and the world will open. Fast forward to the spring of 1966. Humboldt's favorite son has become Estevan's scoring engine, piling up 144 points in 60 games for the SJHL Bruins. A total so absurd older reporters double-check their sums each time they file. Ross racks up another 23 goals in 25 playoff games, and the Boston Bruins scouts, bundled in brown overcoats in the old Civic Auditorium, trade raised eyebrows that say, "All right, this kid has the steel." Boston brings him east, throws him into the American Hockey League cauldron with the Buffalo Bisons, and by autumn, the 20-year-old farm kid from Watson. Yes, officially he was born in tiny Watson, although Humboldt likes to claim him, skates onto NHL ice for the very first time. His heart hammers, but his stride stays smooth, and in those first terse minutes against Bauer's Maple Leafs, he decides fear will never again fit inside his chest. Protectors. Boston in the late 60s is a brutal classroom. The big club is rebuilding. Bobby Orr is rewriting physics from the blue line. Legendary crank Harry Sinden growls from behind the bench. And every practice feels like a mid-January bare-knuckle fair. Ross absorbs elbows, learns to protect the puck along the boards, learns to turn a 6-inch gap into daylight, learns that the difference between a fourth liner and a legend is often the willingness to take a bruise and still be the first man back-checking. Yet, depth charts are cruel math, and after 45 scattered games across 2 seasons, Boston shuttles him to the West Coast, where palm trees tower over freshly minted NHL dreams, the Los Angeles Kings. Los Angeles in 1969 is sunburn and surfboards, and the sweet strange aroma of orange blossoms wafting toward the Forum in Inglewood. Inside, however, the ice remains unforgiving. Ross loves it, loves the cultural whiplash of skating under psychedelic spotlights, loves the way a goal horn echoes in a building where rock concerts and Lakers tip-offs blur into one extravagant carnival. He finds chemistry with Butch Goring, picks corners on goaltenders still adjusting to the league's Western expansion, and clocks in back-to-back 20-goal seasons that make GM Larry Reagan beam. The 1972 All-Star Game selects him as an ambassador for a franchise desperate for legitimacy. And when he steps onto the St. Louis ice in that royal purple sweater, cameras catch a grin that seems to say, "Prairie boy, Hollywood Nights, who would have guessed?" Yet, Destiny taps a different badge. February 1972, The King's Broker, a blockbuster, Ross Lonsberry, Bill Flett, Jean Potvin, and Eddie Joyal to Philadelphia for a package headlined by Serge Bernier. Journalists buzz about travel miles and asset balance, but Ross boards a red-eye with nothing but skates and curiosity. Philadelphia is blue-collar thunder, a city of bell tower chimes and blunt opinions, and its young flyers, already christened the Broad Street Bullies, intend to knead opponents into the boards until they squeal. Coach Fred Shiro, half philosopher, half field marshal, builds a doctrine around relentless forecheck, fists faster than refs' whistles, and a locker room creed scrawled on the board. "We win tonight, we walk together forever." Ross slides onto a line with Rick McLeish and Gary Dornhofer, slotting as the reliable two-way conscience between a sniper and a wrecking ball. His first week, he drops gloves with a Rangers enforcer twice his size, not because he adores fighting, but because culture demands he plant a flag. The Spectrum faithful roar approval, and just like that, Ross Lonsberry, the modest kid whose parents once mortgaged harvest equipment to buy him CCM blades, becomes part of Philadelphia mythology. His defensive responsibility allows Clark to gamble, his angled stick breaks passing lanes, and his quietly vicious wrist shot turns goalies' water bottles into geysers. The 1973-74 season arrives like an electrical storm. Philadelphia strings wins until sports writers who once mocked their barbarism begin spinning cautionary tales for anyone crossing the Delaware. Ross posts a career best 32 goals, but numbers only sketch the surface. Night after night, with Schultz patrolling mayhem on the fourth line, with Parent stitching shutouts like a tailor, Ross is the hinge, killing penalties at one end, extending offensive zone time at the other, absorbing slash after slash from frustrated defensemen who cannot pry the puck off him in the corners. In the locker room, teammates note how rarely he misses a shift, despite purple bruises blooming across his ribs. May 19, 1974. Game 6, Stanley Cup Final, Flyers vs. Bruins, 1-0 lead late third. Shiro deploys the checking line, Ross, Clark, Dornhofer, against Esposito's hammer. With 68 seconds left, Orr pinches, the puck ricochets off shin guards, chaos flares, and there is Ross kicking it free, flipping it into neutral ice, forcing Boston to retreat. The horn blasts, pandemonium detonates, orange seats tremble, and Ross Lonsberry, 27 years old, stands at center ice amid a snow globe of confetti, realizing he has helped give Philadelphia its first major sports championship in almost 2 decades. Somewhere in the crowd, a sign reads, "Thank you, Saskatchewan." Championships change lives, but they also reset appetites. The Flyers defend with even more ferocity in 1975. Ross's production dips slightly, 27 goals, but his defensive metrics glitter. Advanced analytics do not yet exist, yet seasoned eyes see he is the thermostat for puck possession. When Buffalo, led by the electrifying French Connection line, pushes the final to 6 games, it is Ross who personally blocks 5 slap shots in Game 5, his calf swelling to grapefruit size, refusing post-game x-rays because, as he tells trainers, tape and aspirin will do. Another cup, another mural of Broad Street mayhem, another silent moment later that night when he phones Juanita from the hotel and whispers, "We did it again." She tells him their toddler tried on his practice helmet and toddled through the kitchen shouting, "Goal!" 76 and 77 pass in a blur of sold-out barns and off-ice celebrity. Ross buys a modest ranch home in Cherry Hill, drives carpools like any suburban dad, and yet he cannot grocery shop without autograph seekers recounting where they were the first time he dropped a glove. He befriends Phillies star Mike Schmidt, shares fishing weekends with Bernie Parent along the Jersey Shore, and quietly bankrolls a youth hockey fund in inner-city Camden, insisting his name remain off the brochures. Even in an era when Flyers are photographed arm in arm with The Who backstage, Ross prefers steakhouse dinners with the equipment staff, crew-cut humility over glitter. By 1978, the roster ages, payroll tightens, and GM Keith Allen orchestrates another shakeup. Ross is shipped to the Pittsburgh Penguins, where civic rivers meet but management flails. The Penguins crave leadership, and Ross provides it. 39 goals across 3 seasons, a mentor's steady voice for rising star Rick Kehoe, and proof that professionalism travels. Yet the civic arena seldom sells out, and the press corps is thin. After every game, Ross fielding the same 3 questions about how Philly used to do it begins to feel like paging through someone else's scrapbook. His body aches. Tape and aspirin can no longer disguise cartilage erosion. And on a humid April afternoon in 1981, between rounds of golf in suburban Mount Lebanon, he announces retirement. Local headlines are respectful but muted, and Ross doesn't mind. He has never hungered for spotlight heat. He relocates to Santa Clarita, California, partly for the weather, partly for a 3-hour commute radius, that make sense in the insurance business he joins. Former athletes often chase endorsement ghost ships. Ross instead masters actuarial tables, customer trust, and the art of returning every phone call by sundown. Clients appreciate the pepper in his handshake and the way he explains annuities without jargon. Weekends, he volunteers as an assistant coach at a fledgling youth rink, teaching bantam players the subtleties of angle play along the wall, preaching cardio and courage in equal measure. He never name drops the Stanley Cup rings, unless a nervous 11-year-old needs proof that, yes, staying low in your stride really does matter. Time, of course, keeps casual score. His eldest heads to college in Oregon. His second enlists in the Coast Guard. His youngest stages backyard musicals. Morley and Pauline pass away within 3 years of each other, and Ross buries them in Saskatchewan soil, the prairie wind rasping hymns over tombstones. He travels back south, noticing on the flight how quickly the plane slices through cloud layers, yet how slowly grief seeps from a rib cage. Insurance files, youth practice drills, little league bleacher chatter, life soldiers on, then the winter fatigue arrives, shortness of breath during morning jogs, a gnawing dull ache below the sternum. He laughs it off until Juanita catches him doubled over by the mailbox, perspiration beading despite mild December air. Tests stack upon tests. The verdict is cellular betrayal, cancer, advanced enough that oncologists speak in conditional verbs. Ross nods, absorbs the data, researches dietary protocols, sketches workout schedules scaled for chemo weeks. Fighters, after all, bargain with adversity by constructing routine. Chemotherapy rooms echo with shifting fates. Other patients discover Ross's past from an orderly who recognizes his name. And soon infusion afternoons morph into impromptu storytelling sessions, where he recounts the night Bobby Clark's tooth landed in a teammate's soup, or the infamous time the Flyers' charter flight turbulence turned an entire cabin of heavyweights into queasy lambs. Laughter slices through antiseptic air. Nurses note how vital signs bump whenever the tall Canadian recounts the exact feel of lifting Lord Stanley overhead. He tells one frail teenage fan, "Courage isn't rage on the ice. Courage is skating next shift after you gave up a bad goal." The kid records that line, stamps it onto a bracelet. Months blur, chemical drips, slow walks, insurance spreadsheets. He insists on auditing between treatments. Letters from former Flyers that smell faintly of cigar smoke and old victories. Bernie parent visits, brings cheesesteaks smuggled through LAX security, and the two men sit in the hospital courtyard, trading sunrise memories of the Jersey Shore. Ross admits, almost shyly, that he sometimes dreams of a single shift back at the Spectrum, stands on the bench tapping his stick, feeling the whole building tremble before he even hops the boards. Parent chuckles, "You know dreams don't dim the banners, they just let us visit." By early 2014, Ross understands the clock better than any scoreboard he ever watched. He invites friends for a backyard barbecue, urges them to eat first, talk later, insists no one mention prognosis. He jokes about one last comeback if the Kings need depth, raises a toast to grandchildren learning to say, "hat trick." And when night cools the desert air, he tells Juanita, "If this is overtime, it's a beautiful rink." On May 4th, he slips away in the quiet hours, age 67, under a California sky that breaks dawn just as nurses whisper the time of death. Newspaper obituaries list cancer clinically. Ex-teammates call radio programs choking back tears. Philadelphia sports stations replay grainy footage of a young man in orange and black leaping into Clark's arms as the cup is paraded past delirious ushers. They bury him at San Fernando Mission Cemetery, among mission bell shadows and whispering pepper trees. Former Flyers dispatch orange roses. Kings alumni send a surfboard signed, "Once a king, always a king." Penguins fans mail black and gold scarves. The flat granite marker reads simply, "David Ross Lonsberry, beloved husband, father, champion." No mention of penalty minutes or blocked shots or the countless micro moments of situational awareness that turned games. Yet, in rinks from Saskatoon to South Philadelphia, coaches still queue up ancient VHS clips. Watch number 7 along the wall, see how he angles his hips. Note how he takes a hit to make the play. Kids squint, rewinding again, trying to decode courage that looks, on poor resolution, almost casual. Legacy, finally, is a mosaic assembled by people who didn't necessarily meet you, but feel they know you because they heard the timbre of your determination echo through aluminum rafters. It is a father telling his daughter that teamwork means covering the weak side, even when nobody thanks you. It is a middle-aged accountant in Glendale who once, as a child, caught a practice-used Flyers puck flung by Ross and now keeps it in a desk drawer for luck during audits. Legacy is also softer. The oncology nurse in Santa Clarita who says years later that she never saw a patient calm a chemo ward the way Ross did when he described the sound of skates scoring fresh ice. If you stand outside the Spectrum's old footprint, now a parking lot haunted by the ghosts of slap shots, you can almost hear them, seats banging, organs surging, a farm kid from Watson roaring down the left wing, cutting inside a defenseman, wrists flicking, red light flaring, crowd rising like a single colossal heartbeat. You can almost sense the moment he pivots, hunts back through center ice, already preparing for the next shift, because celebration is fleeting and responsibility lasts until the final horn. Ross Lonsberry never wore the captain's C, never chased headlines, never courted scandal. His tragedy, if tragedy is the word, was the quiet universal one, cells turning rogue, time outracing desire. But even that he met the only way he knew, stride low, elbows tight, eyes up, tape and aspirin in the locker stall, one more shift, one more, until the coaches tap your shoulder and say, "Good game, kid, you can rest now." Rest he does, but the game, our game, remembers. Every time a left winger digs a puck loose against impossible odds, every time an undersized forward refuses to stay down, every time a championship parade salutes the grinders as loudly as the goal scorers, some invisible filament of that moment connects back to Ross pacing the Spectrum ice under storming arcs of celebratory confetti. Maybe that is why, even long after the ice has melted and the banners are locked in museum glass, fans still write his name in forums, still debate whether his line was the true hinge of the Flyers dynasty, still wear vintage number 7 sweaters to alumni nights. Because in Ross Lonsberry, they see a blueprint. Loyalty without ego, toughness without malice, victory without vanity, and the stoic grace to face life's final siren with the same calm he once brought to penalty kills. So, picture the prairie highway once more, but this time in summer, wheat rippling under a warm wind, and somewhere beyond the horizon, a boy's laughter rises as skate blades carve phantom circles across a pond frozen only in memory. The echo carries, echo upon echo, until it reaches rinks and living rooms far away, reminding anyone who hears that greatness is sometimes quiet, often unglamorous, and always worth chasing, one hard stride at a time,